Welcome to Adventures in Freeze Drying, and today I am taking some encouragement from Nessa's Nook, and I am going to start my freeze-dried pantry, meaning I'm going to have some ingredients set aside that are single ingredients that I can use when I am cooking, maybe even make a whole meal to save me some time when I don't have time to cook. So she's been very inspiring to me this way, and then she's going to collaborate with me and show me some meals in a jar, or just some meals you can throw together using that freeze-dried pantry. So make sure you also check out Nessa's Nook, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Today I have a couple of things going on. I'm going to do some onions. I'm going to do them in two different ways. I want to make some onion powder, and I also just want to make some diced onions that are freeze-dried. I'm going to do a bunch of peppers just diced up to throw into soups or omelets or hamburger meals or whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and get a bunch of peppers diced up. And then I have some broccoli left over from Christmas, and we didn't eat all of the stems at Christmas. So I'm going to do two things: get some broccoli florets, but also chop down the stalks here and use those to make like a broccoli powder to put in my smoothies and things to help me stay a little bit healthier. To prep my peppers, I am going to go ahead and put them in just my sink and some water, but I'm also going to add just a splash of vinegar, not a lot. And I have a pump for soap, and I'm just going to do 1 pump of soap. I don't want a ton on there, but just to make sure that these are clean, since these are store-bought, before I start washing them, I'm going to let these soak while I work on prepping my other vegetables. For my diced onions, I'm simply going to kind of cut the top of that onion off, get this peeled, just like you normally would, before using an onion to cook with it. Chop that onion in half. I'm going to slice some wedges into that onion. Notice I'm not quite cutting all the way to the root. And that's going to allow me to just kind of go like this and get nice little diced pieces that I can freeze dry. And then I'm going to go ahead and get, I think, my 4 biggest onions here, all chopped up like that. And then the other 4, I'm going to go ahead and we'll put through the food processor, since we're going to turn those into onion powder. I actually had 9 onions, not 8. So I chopped up the 5 largest. I have 1 medium tray full of diced onion. And the other 4 onions, I went ahead and cleaned and quartered. And I'm simply going to put them in my food processor and get them processed down, because I plan to powder these. I think it's fine if they get really mashed up together and even kind of liquidy. I think I'm going to put these in some silicone molds, simply because I've got some other things I want to put in the freeze dryer, and some frozen pucks of things might allow me to mix trays without flavors running into each other. So I'll get these processed, and then we'll get these put in some molds together. So I've processed these pretty heavily. They're kind of watery and soupy, which is perfect for going into these molds. They should hold their shape once they're frozen, allow me to transfer them very easily onto the trays. And then if I want to mix the tray with something else, I don't have them running together and spreading that onion into a different veggie. So I'm going to put, these are 1/4 cup molds. I'm going to put a 1/4 cup of this onion in each of these molds. And I'll tell you how much I have when I'm done. So I ended up with 5 of these 1/4 cup pucks of really processed onions that I plan to freeze dry and turn into onion powder. So we're going to go ahead and move on to dicing up my peppers. So for my peppers, I'm going to cut out the core. And I've already rinsed these and let them sit for a little bit. I've soaked my broccoli in that same little soap, little vinegar water, and it's now also sitting and getting some of the water off. I'm going to get those seeds out. I like to cut the pith out, which again, If you want some of this in your veggie stock, you could save this stuff for veggie stock as well. I'm planning to do like a carrot, celery, onion, probably not broccoli, carrot, onion, celery, and probably some garlic in my veggie stock. So then once you get the seeds out, I'm just going to kind of julienne these into some pieces. Again, I want to be able to toss this in something where you want some diced peppers, so I'm going to dice these down into smaller pieces yet. 6 peppers completely filled a medium tray. I still have 6 peppers left over, and I've got an idea that we'll talk about in a little bit. So I'm going to move on to chopping up my broccoli. And I'm going to cut these into smaller florets because I don't want these giant ones going into the freeze dryer. So I'm going to cut these down pretty small to go into my freeze dryer. I'll see you when those are done. When you freeze broccoli, they recommend that you blanch it before you freeze it. So I've got all this cut up into little tiny pieces, and I'm going to use my veggie steamer. I'll get this boiling first so I know it's boiling. I'll put the basket into the veggie steamer for 5 minutes, and then everything's going into an ice bath, and I'll see you once I get this all trayed up. Broccoli has been blanched, and then I've let it strain a little bit so there wouldn't be a ton of extra water on my pan. No need to put extra water in my freeze dryer. And then it's spread out on my pan. My last idea was to do some sort of broccoli powder using the stems from my broccoli. So I've blanched those and cooled them off as well. I'm going to put these in here and process them in my food processor. This isn't quite as soupy as my onions were, but again, I want to keep my onions and broccoli from running together. I'm planning to use these molds, so I'm going to simply go ahead and just add like a half cup of water right now, and then I'm going to keep processing this and see if we can't get this to break down a little bit more, so it'll stick together better if I put this in the molds. This ended up being kind of similar to the onions. Not quite the same, which it shouldn't be. This is broccoli, not onions. So I'm going to go ahead and see how many molds we'll get out of this. I got a full 6 1/4 cup molds out of what I had in here. I still have a little bit left. So I'm going to get all of this frozen up, and then we will see you at the freeze dryer. So it has been just over 42 hours, 42 and a half hours here. I put plenty of extra dry time on because I was worried about these pucks getting completely dry in the middle. I just have one of these infrared thermometers saving up for that FLIR, but I'm going to go ahead and check these. And again, it's only good for the spot I'm looking at, and I'm looking for anything that's really cold. And I'm not seeing that now. The broccoli is a little different, but it's still well in the 70s. So I am going to call this batch completed, and we will see you in the kitchen. The peppers and onions and broccoli look absolutely fabulous. So we're going to get these jarred up, and I'm going to show you my new toy. So before I jar these up, let's actually try this. Like, I'm curious, what does broccoli? Is this a snack? Does it have to be put into a meal yet? Like, I don't know. I'm going to try it. It's fine. Tastes like broccoli. I probably could eat it as a snack. A snack would be when I'm going to go, ooh, let's have some dried broccoli. It's not going to be like, oh, that's really good. I am not a huge raw onion person. I don't mind them cooked into things, but maybe dehydrated. Those I could do. Those are more like a Funyun. Those are not bad. And I did sweet onions, like yellow onions, so onions not bad. And I love sweet peppers raw. And those are kind of like candy. I could see breaking into this if I wanted a snack. And going on these peppers. Those are excellent just as they are. Absolutely, you can put them in something yet, but just wanted to try them out just to know you know, what I might break into. I have gone ahead and jarred these up. The broccoli is super fragile, and I went ahead and figured I would probably only use about a quart in a meal, like if I wanted to do some sort of beef and broccoli, some sort of meal like that. So I put those in 2 quarts. These weren't enough. There's too much for a quart jar, but not enough for a half gallon. I went ahead and put them in the half gallon jars. There's an OA in each jar that I just put in there. And the new thing I bought, since I haven't bought an Avid Armor yet, is a jar sealer. And after reading some reviews, it looks like you need to put a lid inside here upside down, and that helps these to seal. I've tried this out. That seems to work. I'm kind of liking this jar sealer. You just simply set this on the top, and you push the button, and you let this go for about 15 to 20 seconds, and then it is sealed. And so far, my seals have been holding. I've been testing it, and so I've been real happy with this device so far. Something you might want to check out. I'll put a link down below on where I got this on Amazon. So I'm going to finish sealing these jars, and then we will make our onion powder and broccoli powder. I'm going to make my onion powder first, and I'm simply going to put these, basically they're like styrofoam discs. They're super flimsy. I can just push that in there. Probably want to break it down even more if I'm going to get that to fall down and work in the shaker bottle. I'm nervous if I have to wash something up, then have to wait a while for it to dry to make my broccoli powder, and I have less onions than broccoli. So we're going to put this in here. I might need to add another, might have to do this twice in here to get all my onions done, but I will simply screw this on and put this down on my Ninja and get that powdered down. So I'll be back in 1 second here. I discovered as we were putting stuff into my Ninja that these pucks were not done in the middle. They were still frozen. So I went ahead and finished processing. I've made this super smooth. My onion powder had the same issue. It's back in the freezer. It's going to have to be rerun. I'm making sure it's much thinner than those pucks were. So even though my freezer had been running for 42.5 hours, the pucks were still frozen in the middle. I also learned that that infrared thermometer is great for surface temps and thin things, but my pucks clearly were still frozen in the middle, and it did not pick that up. So that's where that FLIR that Live Life Simple Brian, retired at 40, is using is super important. Going to save up for that because you can actually get a better idea of what the total temp of the food is than with the infrared thermometer. Thank you for joining me on Adventures in Freeze Drying, and we will see you next time.